Concerns about people voting more than once in Occupy Central referendum. Dozens of mainland tourists stranded at Cherkasy Airport. And a cool response by Russia to Ukraine president's peace plan.
Hello and a very good evening. There are claims that the voting system used in the Occupy Central civil referendum has been compromised. But organisers play down the issue, saying the scale of the problem is very small. By 5 p.m. today, more than 510,000 votes had been cast. Rani Samtani has our top story tonight.
Reports have surfaced that some people have voted more than once using random ID card numbers. Occupy Central organizer Benny Tai said he'd received a handful of reports of the use of ID card numbers without consent.
That's not a very widespread situation, and we have no evidence that there are any organized work to try to use this way to so-called hijack the system. We have to understand that this is a system organized by the civil society, and it is not a system organized by the government. And we have to accept that this is the kind of possibilities exist.
Tai said his team will continue to monitor the situation, but he doesn't think the referendum would be discredited as a result. He added that if anyone asserts that their system has problems, they should call on the government to organize an official referendum. IT sector lawmaker Charles Mock admitted that a loophole in the system allows people to vote multiple times, but he said that possibility is low. Tai said if anyone is unable to vote online because the system says their ID card has already been used, they can head to polling stations tomorrow or next Sunday. He said by presenting your ID card at a physical polling station, you can override the online system vote. The government has made clear the referendum has no legal basis. And former Chief Secretary for Administration and defeated CE candidate Henry Tang pointed out the basic law clearly states that electoral methods have to be approved by the National People's Congress Standing Committee.
The central people government have a role legally in the formulation of that system. Whatever they feel that they want, you cannot come out and say, oh, if they don't accept what I want, then I'm going to come out and express my view in illegal means.
Meanwhile, dozens of members of the taxi trade rallied in Wan Chai today against what they called hooligan politics. They expressed concerns about their livelihood if Occupy Central does go ahead. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
The chairman of the LegCo Finance Committee is in the hot seat. Both pan-democratic and pro-establishment lawmakers are calling on him to step down over the way he handled the funding request of the Northeast New Territories Development Project. Ng Sing says he will let the committee members decide on his fate. 6 meetings and still no vote. The Finance Committee has debated for more than a month the government's funding request for initial work on the Northeast New Territories Development Project. Pan-democratic lawmakers now want to put forward a motion of no confidence against committee chairman Ng Sing to try to force him to step down. Among their complaints, Ng allowed a 1-minute voting period on procedural matters to go on for more than 2 minutes yesterday.
The whole point of him trying to drag on for another minute or so was to hope for more pro-establishment legislators to vote and eventually winning the vote. If the chair cannot maintain his just position, go by the regulations, he should step down.
Yesterday, even pro-establishment lawmaker Regina Ip called for Vice Chairwoman Emily Lau to take over as chair. In a telephone interview, Ng said he is open to stepping down. He said he knows there's room for improvement, but it's hard to please everyone, adding that the issue has become more politicized than he had expected. LegCo President Chang Yok-sing did voice support for Ng today, saying he's tried his best, but that LegCo is particularly divided at the moment. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying today again defended the project, saying it had gone through adequate public consultation. Leung promised to strike a balance between conservation and development. NXCO convener Lam Woon Kwong said no matter who the CE is and which party has the majority in LegCo, the development project still needs to go ahead because it's about accommodation for the 7 million people of Hong Kong. There are only 3 Finance Committee meetings left before the LegCo summer break next month, and many funding requests have still not been approved. Secretary for Labour and Welfare Matthew Cheung said these include several welfare subsidy items. He urged lawmakers not to hold up funding for the needy. Dozens of mainland travellers have complained about being stuck inside their plane at Chek Lap Kok Airport. Jonathan Lee reports.
The airport authority says changes in Shanghai traffic control caused many flights to be cancelled or delayed. Among them was Hong Kong Airlines flight HX234, which was supposed to head from Hong Kong to Shanghai's Pudong Airport last night. About 200 passengers were on board, and more than 100 of them were transferred to other flights. But more than 70 mainland tourists said they were stranded overnight in the aircraft. They asked for help from the police and complained to the airport authority and the tourism board. They are seeking compensation for their ordeal. There are reports that passengers weren't satisfied with the amount that the airline originally offered and refused to leave. This passenger says they were stranded for 15 hours and hopes Hong Kong Airlines can give them a reasonable explanation. The airline, for its part, says they had tried to get passengers to leave the aircraft, but they were not willing to do so. The tourism board has asked Hong Kong Airlines to follow up on the case. And the airport authority has called on travelers to check with the airlines about the latest flight information. Jonathan Lee, TVB News.
On the mainland, authorities in Xinjiang killed 13 people who they say attacked a police office building. State-run television reported that the assailants drove at least one car into the building and set off explosives. 3 police officers were injured in the attack. The incident in Yecheng County in southern Xinjiang is the latest in a series of deadly attacks in the region. Ethnic Uyghurs there have been demanding greater autonomy from Beijing.
Turning overseas now, a fragile ceasefire declared yesterday appears to be holding in eastern Ukraine. It's the first step in a peace plan that the country's new president hopes will end months of bloodshed and begin a healing process for the embattled country. James Aitken reports.
In his first trip to eastern Ukraine as president, Petro Poroshenko ordered troops to cease fire for 7 days and halt military operations against pro-Russian separatists. Poroshenko told his troops that they have the right to fire back if attacked, but he's hoping the truce will be the beginning of an end to a conflict that has killed hundreds.
Thank you for coming.
Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations says they want to give separatist fighters time to disarm and allow fighters from Russia to leave the country.
We need peace for dialogue. A dialogue will bring the stability. To have a peace, naturally, we are to stop the incoming military support and financial support for illegal groupings in the eastern part of Ukraine.
Pro-Russian separatist leaders have been quick to dismiss the plan, arguing that since they did not take part in elections, Poroshenko is not their president. But among local residents, a sense that patience is wearing thin. We want peace. We will support everything the president says. We are fed up with all this, says this resident. Meanwhile, Moscow says the peace plan resembles an ultimatum.
All those things may well mean more bloodshed and even intensification of bloodshed rather than a peace initiative. But we'll see. We have not seen, as I say, the final product yet. But it is very premature to talk about Russian support.
Should the ceasefire hold, one of the next steps would include creating a 10-kilometer buffer zone along the border. Kiev would then introduce measures to protect Russian language rights and hold new local and parliamentary elections aimed at decentralizing power and giving the country's regions more political authority. Western leaders are welcoming the peace plan and waiting to see if Russia acts on it. If not, they say they've already been discussing a new round of sanctions against Moscow. James Aitken, TVB News.
United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has warned that U.S. airstrikes against Sunni extremists in Iraq could be ineffective and even backfire. Ban was responding to President Barack Obama's statement that he had not ruled out the possibility of airstrikes under the right circumstances. Here's Alan Buckner.
While U.S. President Barack Obama said Thursday there would be no American troops on the ground in Iraq, he didn't rule out airstrikes on the insurgents, called the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, also referred to as ISIS. The UN Secretary General warned, however, that airstrikes could galvanize even moderate Sunnis against the Shiite majority.
Military strikes against ISIS might have little lasting effect or even be counterproductive if there is no movement toward inclusive government in Iraq.
There is growing pressure on Iraq's Shiite Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, to create a government that's more inclusive of Sunni and Kurd minorities. Even some senior Shiite clerics have urged al-Maliki to form a more representative government or stand aside. Ban also urged that there be no government retaliation against Sunnis.
It is imperative for the government and its backers to ensure that no reprisals are carried out against the Sunni communities in revenge for the barbaric acts by ISIS.
United Nations aid agencies, meanwhile, are struggling to cope with people displaced by the insurgency. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates the number to be well over 1 million.
The ongoing conflict and the extremely volatile environment is likely to limit humanitarian access to thousands of displaced people in areas controlled by armed groups.
Lerka says making things even more difficult are depleted fuel stocks in the northern Iraq regions. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
And still to come in our news tonight. The US and Thailand at loggerheads over human trafficking. Locally, efforts to help prevent suicide. And Italy's loss seals England's World Cup fate.
What a shocker! Balotelli missed the best chance against Costa Rica, who now advances to the round of 16. A careless back pass cost Switzerland dearly. And Ecuador managed to stay in the tournament. 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil Daily Highlights. Tonight at 8 on Pearl.
Biotherm 揭開法國 Pyrenees 青春全員奧秘，以最高濃度水源再生因子，成就全新 Biotherm 水源再生活膚原液，8天見證感受新生肌膚，全新水源再生活膚原液，立即體驗肌膚再生奇蹟。
Beauty found in the smallest details. The expectation of extraordinary. Vision for what is yet to come. These are the hallmarks of superior instinct. And wherever it leads, perfection follows. The new Audi A8L. A statement ahead of its time.
有 DHA 智立方360，時刻 A 加領先，
唔使擔心。
安怡寶 A 加創新 DHA 智立方360，智動情與全發展，成就 A 加表現。你讚神。
好多人淨係諗住院保障，從來都冇諗過出院後嘅使費隨時喺預料之外。治療過程漫長，想完全康復，使費仲可能有排計。喺 AXA 安城，我哋嘅醫療計劃除咗住院治療保障外，連出院後嘅門診、物理治療、家居看護服務等都為你照顧周到，令你安心專注康復，投入健康生活。成功投保安城安心醫療計劃，有機會獲贈健康獎賞。快啲同你嘅理財顧問傾下啦 ！AXA 安城引領新標準。
Why are we so good at Japanese?
Because we are students of Nikkei.
Nikkei's Japanese summer course is taught by professional teachers combined with exciting cultural activities. If you want to have a very Japanese summer, hurry and sign up for Nikkei's Japanese summer course.
Welcome back. Thailand says it's disappointed with the decision by the US State Department